Good morning, everyone. This video is particularly for the 5-year integrated MA in Media Communication Studies, semester 3rd, and subject reporting and writing for print media. This video covers the topic headlines, technique, purpose, and style. Basically, headlines in newspaper. So this is a part of unit 3rd, which is the type of reporting and news writing. So very first thing, what you do when you look for the newspaper, when you're looking in the newspaper, what is the first thing that you do? It is simply looking for the headlines or the top stories of the day. So these headlines, these few lines or collection of lines of display type that precedes a story and summarizes it or introduces it is called the headline. Basically, the title of every story, the short information about the story is what we call the headline. So as we define headline as the title above the story, story here is the news story in a newspaper, magazine or newsletter. So this is what we call the headline or simply the head in print journalism. So basically when we define headline in print journalism or writing for newspaper, magazines, newsletter, etc., we call that as the headlines or head or the heading on the pages of online portals. So it is basically the text indicating the nature of the article or the news story below. So there is a headline on the top of the story, and then it precedes the story, and the it includes the information of the shortest information of the news story. So you can say that it is a brief summary of the news story. So why do we need headline? If we have already so much of news in the newspaper, what is the purpose of headline? Why do we need headlines, or what is the actual reason do we have the headlines in the newspaper? So here comes the few purposes that we generally denote about the headlines. So if you see that you don't have so much of time to read the whole story, you cover generally these stories in one line, and that is what we call the headline. As I previously said, that the headline is the brief summary of the story. So if you don't have a time to read the whole story, you can simply go through the headline of the story and can understand the story. So basically it is used for the indexing of the content and the nature of the news, what kind of news it is, or what kind of content it has. So indexing is very important, listing the important areas of the news story. And then again it provides a capsule information. Here the capsule information is the briefing of the story, the brief summary of the story. So you just give one capsule or a very short information about the news story. So the major purpose of this headline is to draw the attention of the readers. So as a reader, we understand the purpose, we understand the news story, but uh, how do we get the news, or how important is the news, is the basic purpose that a headline does. So it generally gives the identity to the news. Identity means that you understand the news, you understand the content of the news. And it also conveys the significance of the news story. How important is this story? Why do we need to read that story? You just you simply get the idea of the news story by the headline, and you yourself confers that it is important for important for you to read the whole story. So it generally talks about the seriousness of the story. The kind of headline tells the effectiveness of the story, how effective or serious is the story. It basically tells the impact of this story. If the headline is the strong enough to grab the attention of the viewers, then the purpose of the headline is justified. So if I say in a nutshell, the headline is the window to the news. So this is basically a frame of reference to the news story that precedes by it, and it is generally the idea of the news story. So you can very simply get the 5W1H or a little bit idea about the news. So here's the purpose of the headline. Why do we need the headlines? Just to get the whole information in nutshell. So when we write the headline, there are so many style of writing the headlines. So how do we identify that what news need this particular kind of style of headline, or how do we write the headlines? So there are some basic styles that are generally used in newspaper to like give headlines to the stories. So there are so many styles, but here are some very frequently used styles in every sort of newspaper, though every newspaper has their own style of writing or editing or page making. But then there are a few there are some headlines that are very commonly used in the newspaper making or news story writing. So the very first is the banner headline or head. Generally we call headline as head, blanket headline, crossline headline, double or triple deck head, kicker head, hammer or reverse kicker head, flush left head, flush right head, inverted pyramid head, step line, waistline, and jump line head. So these are a few style of writing that we use generally to write the news stories. So these are the examples and the type of headline that we are going to discuss here. So the very first is the banner headline. As the name suggests, it is a kind of banner to the whole news. It is basically a large headline, one or more than one line extending across the full page or the full 8 column of the news. So generally it covers the whole width of the page, also called it is also called a uh, streamer, and it generally has the like the font size of this kind of headline is generally bigger than the font of the masthead, which is the name of the newspaper. So it is very less in used, especially in very extraordinary kind of news. You can see the kind of two news here. One is when it was the atom bomb blast in the Japan, and second one is when India got the independence. India proclaimed sovereign democratic republic. So this is the kind of news, the rarest of the rarest news when we use the banner headline. So it is very rarely used headline and a very important headline. The another one is the blanket head. Blanket head is generally the headline which covers all the columns that occupied in a story. So generally we use 8 column in a whole newspaper. So banner headline and blanket headline are two different headlines, but similarly generally people get confused about blanket and the banner headline, but there is a slight difference between the both. Blanket headline covers the whole width of the newspaper, banner headline and blanket headline covers the 8 columns of the newspaper or the whole news. It is mostly used for the big stories. So next is the most commonly used headline, that is what we call the crossline headline. Crossline headline are simply the single line headline centered over a story. Generally it is used in 1 column or 2 column news. Simply it is a simple one liner which is located above the story. So it is a one liner and a single line headline. The next comes is the double or triple tech headline. So as you can see the 2 lines above the news story. So here uh, you can see 2 lines above the story. So these particular 2 lines covers the whole story, and like as we said on the crossline headline, it is one line, and when we use a double or triple deck headline, it is two or three lines that covers the whole story. It may be like divided into one or more units of headline. Like this headlines clearly mention the double deck headline. Next is hammer or reverse kicker. It is called hammer headline. And why is it called the reverse kicker? Because the subordinate headline here is below the main headline. So you can see the subordinate headline below the main headline. So that is why it is called the reverse kicker. Generally it is called the hammer headline. Next headline is flush left headline. So flush left headline is a headline of one or more lines in which all the line are set flush to the left. So there is a slight gap between the both the lines. So you can see the gap between both the lines, and there is the gap, and this gap is towards the left of the story. Next headline is flush right headline. So as we have seen, flush left headline. So this is the opposite of flush left headline. So each line is pushed against the right hand margin to create a step effect on the left. It is very less in use. So as you can see that there is a slight gap between every word or every line here. So this headline is pushed towards the right hand margin. So that is why we called it as the flush right headline, and it is creating a stepped effect. So when we write the flush right headline, we make sure that it should have a look of a step towards the news. See, next is inverted pyramid headline. This is very commonly used headline, generally used for single or double column news. So when the headline is written in the format of a inverted pyramid towards a downside, so it has a structure of inverted pyramid style. So in this style, the center line in which each successive line is shorter than the above line. So as you can see, this is the longer line, and then there is a shorter, and this one is shorter than the both the lines. So it create an effect of an inverted pyramid style. It is generally used for single or double column news. And next is step line headline. Step line headline basically create the effect of steps, जिसको हम कहते हैं सीढ़ी नुमा. You can see generally two or three. It comprises of generally two or three headlines which create the shape of a step, generally called सीढ़ी नुमा. एक सीढ़ी का इफेक्ट क्रिएट करते हुए यहाँ पर ये न्यूज हेडलाइन बनाई जाती है. Another headline which is a very commonly used headline is called the waistline headline. So generally it consists of three lines which creates the shape of a waistline. So waistline of a human being, human. The first line and third line are of same size, and the second line, which is in between the two, is smaller in size. You can clearly see the differences in the shape of the lines. The another headline is jump line head. Jump line head is basically used for specifically for jump stories that are continued at the another page, that started from one page, maybe generally from the first page has these kind of stories where where the story has started from first page, or the bottom line story, you can say. Bottom story is generally covers the jump line head. So it has a headline of its own, and sometimes with the same headline. So generally what happens when you write the headline on front page and you carry on the news story on another page, maybe to be continued to another page, so it has this similar headline as well as the headline that is similar to the previous one. So it can be a one sentence, it can be to like it can be any crossline story, it can crossline headline, or any sort of headline that is continued to the next page. This is all what we have about the headlines. Generally, headlines give a shape, proper shape to the news story, and it is the most commonly used thing that we see in the newspaper. Any news is incomplete without headlines. So if we see headlines, we see the whole kind of the news. So generally, headline gives the idea of the news story, and generally people prefer to read the headline when they are in hurry. So it also gives like an idea of the stories that have been covered in the news stories. So this is all. Thank you very much.